Hey everyone, my name is Chris. Welcome to Convos.dev. I'm excited to chat with Jess as always. Jess, how you doing today?
I'm great. I think it's crazy that we're wearing the same clothes as episode 2. It's like
Yeah, that's
we
what happens when
decided
you
to just
bulk
wear the same
record.
thing.
I just can't believe I let you get through the last episode and never commented on the fork. For those of you listening and not watching, Jess has a fork attached to her mic, or rather the mic attached to her fork.
Yeah. I think it's like a thing that Gen Zers do. Like they attach it to like random stuff to get people to watch longer on their TikToks. So it's kind of fun, like
We'll
waving
have to
this around.
compare these two episodes and see which one did better since I
Yeah.
mentioned it on this one. I know AI is kind of taking over a lot of the dev space, but I think there's some questions people aren't really asking, at least in public spheres that I've heard of. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on like how AI changes how you learn code, not whether you learn it, but like how you learn to code, and whether that's like you're starting to code or you're just like a developer who has to do something you've never done before. At what point do you interface with AI? How does that change that learning journey? What are the good parts? What are the bad parts? So yeah, I'm curious like how we can get all the good stuff from AI when we're learning to do something new in development and how we can avoid all the bad stuff.
Oh, so you want me to take on that whole question?
Just,
I'll do
yeah,
I'll
just
do
let
my
me know
best.
all your thoughts. I'm going to take notes and then at the end we'll say goodbye.
Oh, I
No,
did
but
write down some stuff. I did write down some stuff. So,
okay.
in no particular order. So, I think there's obviously the biggest thing is like coding with AI ruins curiosity. You're just generating AI slop, and then you're not actually looking at the code that's generated, and you don't actually care to open up the box to see certain concepts. I do like to play devil's advocate, right? So, there's a
Yeah.
lot of times where I'm like, in the past, without AI, if you Google something, and you go to Stack Overflow, I mean, how many times are you just copy pasting the code that people are putting on Stack Overflow and putting it into your code and seeing if it works, right? I mean, you might not be, but I did, right? Like
Yeah.
I would just copy paste stuff. If you view it as a spectrum, like one being an engineer that only codes by hand and cracks open everything and has to understand everything up until like assembly code, right? And
Yeah.
then 10 is like your complete vibe coder. I think there's a middle ground, and I don't think I'm close to a 1. I'm probably closer to a 5 or 6, where I'm kind of happy abstracting away a lot of stuff. And I have been for my whole career. But, until AI gets perfect, there's still going to be errors. And so I still do have to crack open the box at some points. And I found that to be the case myself. I think there's a couple places where I've actually enjoyed it. Like, some jobs used to be gated by language and syntax knowledge. You have to know how to code in Rust to get a job at this company. And now I
Mm.
feel like those gates are kind of torn down a little bit, which is nice. There's also times where, when I got my CS degree, I had to learn a lot of like algorithms and data structures, leak code and stuff, right? The common complaint is like, when do you ever use leak code in your day-to-day job? There's a lot of parts where conceptual learnings are actually not used in day-to-day coding times, right? So it's very interesting because what is the point of cracking open the box sometimes if, I don't know, like, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, AI's kind of filled in some of those gaps that maybe you needed to know in the past. In some senses, some of those gaps are more specialized, and so it heightens the importance of knowing those too. So it like kind of depends on your role and what you're doing. But one of the things AI has given people learning stuff, like let's say I had to implement some arcane feature I didn't know anything about. Like I would get a basic brief of what we're talking about, and then honestly, I'd probably go to AI and be like, okay, what are different ways people implement this? Like to be able to have an open and honest discussion, and maybe this is just we're too arrogant to like talk to a senior dev and ask them because we don't want to look like an idiot. Like you can look like an idiot to AI and it doesn't matter. So I think like having AI as somebody to bounce ideas off of and say like, what are the different ways people do this? Why is this approach better than another? Those kinds of questions that are hard to like pin down a senior engineer and have a long, lengthy discussion. Like they're like, I don't want to educate you. I want to review your code. And that's pretty much it. I think this kind of AI has opened up a lot of that kind of world. And to where I think like it gives you that engineer who's willing to talk and you don't
Yep.
mind being an idiot in front of because it doesn't really matter. No one will ever see that unless somebody looks at your ChatGPT history, you know? So
Yeah, OpenAI is looking and judging.
that's right.
No, I totally agree with you. There's this one prompt I use, which is like when I'm setting up any sort of new library or something. This is a new library I'm using. Just set up like a basic script or basic file or basic application where it compiles successfully. A lot of the initial learning curve for something is very high because
Mm.
you're struggling with a lot of compiler errors or a lot of errors, and that is discouraging. And so just getting something started and then looking at the code and the file structure, I'm like, okay, here's the syntax that I need to just get started. And that's super helpful for me because then I don't have
Mm.
to struggle setting things up.
Yeah, I mean, how many of us have wasted like 4 hours trying to get a compiler to work? And it's like, I didn't even do anything today because all I was doing is fighting with the compiler, you know? And a
Yeah,
lot
like
of times those are the
package
kinds of things.
dependencies. Yeah.
Yep. A lot of times those are the kinds of things that AI is really good at. And then you can actually work on something interesting. So that's
Yep.
another good point about like learning is a lot of the setup stuff is more or less taken care of with a lot of those arcane, like tracing dependencies and, that kind of stuff.
So we're
I'm
very
curious, like,
positive about it.
what's that?
We're very positive about it. Should
I
we
know,
should we
right?
take a more negative stance?
I I think so, but I have a couple other questions around this. Like I'm curious if you found like let's say I gave you something new to work on.
Yeah.
You mentioned that prompt. What are some other things, other ways you'd use AI that you think are positive? Like some specific examples.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting nuances with prompt engineering that like are interesting to me. Like the idea that you can, for example, stipulating, hey, I want you to use the best UI UX design practices. Or Git commits sometimes have like there's like a structures like you write bug if it's a bug or feature if it's feature and there's
Yeah.
like a bunch of ways you can standardize how you write Git commits. Like that's cool to me. I'm like I don't really care to like follow that standard, but like it's nice to if I could just generate that based on like the PR changes. So there's a couple of like saved prompts I have that just have that. And
Hmm.
then rules is what I care more about. I have a lot of scripts, a lot of Python scripts I use to automate certain things with captioning some of my TikTok videos. I use Whisper, but Whisper chunks things up into like 10 to 12 word chunks. And I actually like my captions to be 3 to 4 words because I have a low attention span and I like the words to flash faster. I don't think Whisper has a flag for that, or maybe I haven't discovered it. So I just
I
wrote a
don't.
Python script to rechunk my .srt file.
Ah.
And I just have that run every time I put into Warp. I'm like, rechunk this up, like resegment this, and it just runs my Python. And so it just there's a rule for that.
I don't know that I have any like any roles that fall in that category for me. I think for me it's more like techniques for getting the most out of it when I'm learning something. But that's kind of a different topic. So maybe you can talk about your roles and then I can talk about my techniques.
I have a rule that just says like when you're outputting stuff, output stuff as if you're trying to teach me the concepts that you're also implementing.
Oh, I
And
like that.
when it's outputting stuff, it'll actually explain a lot more. And there are little nuances. Like I like things bullet pointed. That's just,
Hmm.
and so I'll just specify that. And Cursor actually has this feature that if you type in slash like generate rules for this project or something, it'll automatically generate a bunch of rules for your project,
Huh.
which sometimes are not is not the most useful. Like it's just general, but I hopefully gets better because I actually really like that.
I think I need to convert some of my techniques into rules because like a lot of my stuff is more manual, but it tries to accomplish that same kind of thing. And I think, yeah, that's definitely something I need to take away from this because I think I do
Give me
more
some examples.
manually. Yeah. So like when I'm learning something or working on something, a lot of times I'll first ask it like explain what you're going to do before you do anything and talk me through like why you made the choices you did. And then I'll have a discussion with it about like more conceptual like structural things because a lot of times if you just let it go, it's so far into the weeds at that point that you're like I don't even know where to start to ask questions. And like for me, having a good understanding of like conceptually where we're going, why we're choosing this method, that's really helpful. I think the other thing I'll do often is I will ask it to explain sections of code bases for me. And
Yep.
like what are the key functions I need to understand what's going on here, like that kind of thing, and just point out stuff for me. Or obviously clean up code. Another thing I like to ask is like, how could I make this more performant? Because that's not something,
Yep.
I don't have a CS degree and that's not where my brain goes naturally. So I'll ask it like, how can I make this cleaner? How can I make it more readable? How can I make this more performant? Like those are questions I typically ask even after like, let's say I did no AI helps when I coded something. I'll then ask that afterwards. And a lot of times it'll make suggestions and sometimes I'm like, I don't like that, or I do like this, or, whatever. But that for me is helpful as like a cleanup. And then I'll ask it to explain itself. So
Yep.
maybe if I could put those into more rules, then I wouldn't
I
have to do so
I
much
I personally
talking.
think that you should.
What we need is like some kind of database of all the different like rules I have and that I could just like sync them automatically everywhere.
Cursor has a repository of rules. There are repositories of rules. I'm sure if we Googled it, we'd find something.
Yeah, but I
I
want it
I
to like
agree though.
auto sync so don't have to go tell Claude and I don't have to go tell it. You just have it somewhere central on your machine and you point
Yeah.
it there. Well, it sounds like
Yeah.
I've been doing way too much manual work. So thanks for that, Jess. Now I know like if I can extract a lot of that into rules, that's super helpful.
Yeah. There was a quote that I saw online, I forget, but it was like working with AI tools is like training a dog. You have to put in like all the work and like training so that it like you get the right output. To be honest, I think that's what the future, a lot of future of development is going to be is a lot less coding by hand, but a lot of more of like training the overall application or tools that you're
Mm,
using to know more of what your context is. So I think, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I think that's just is what's going to happen, you know?
I like that. Well, I know I said we were supposed to get negative. We haven't yet. So where where do you feel like there are dangers in AI,
Oh,
especially around learning, I think?
yeah, I mean, there are times where if I don't want to write a line of code, I don't. It's quite bad. Like, I think the negative parts are very obvious, you know? Like,
Yeah, like
I
it's
don't
easy
even
to
know
be
what school
lazy.
is like nowadays, to be
I
honest.
know. Well, actually, I just talked to somebody who graduated with a CS degree, and she was telling me that their teachers just decided, since you have AI, I'm going to give you 5 times the amount of projects because they're like, we're going to just assume you're going to use it. So she's like, it was actually way worse, I think, than if they hadn't, because I didn't really get to know anything because I was just constantly outputting as much as I possibly could. But I mean, I think that is one of the things that's hard about education is like, do
Yeah.
you assume people are going to use it? Do you try to ban it? Do you try to guide it? And like that changes what you give people to do and what that looks like. But ultimately, like it comes down to the learner themselves. So I'm not sure I like the technique of just saying like, we're going to give you way more work than you can conceivably understand and just crank out the projects because that kind of puts the learning not really on what you're supposed to be there for. It just shows you how to learn AI, I guess. So, but maybe you said that's the future of engineering. Maybe that's what they decided.
They've got to take the same stance as like high school like sex. Like you abstinence is the rule, but then teaching safe sex is what they actually is like you shouldn't use AI, but we'll teach you how to use AI correctly. Like that's got to be the stance. But that sucks
That it,
for that girl. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. That sounds like a horrible policy.
Yeah, she was like, "Yeah, we did this front end web development thing." And she's more of a back end like data engineer was kind of her desire. So she's like, "I did React and Vue and Svelte, but I have no idea what I even did because I just had to crank it
Yeah.
out through AI." So I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, that's kind of unfortunate."
Okay, should we move on to a tools show and tell?
Let's do it. I have like a traditional tool that's not AI. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found this application called Yaak. It's Yaak. It's like an open source Postman tool, and it's been really fun to play with. And like it has a lot of the power that I need. I mean, I used Postman very basically anyhow, and so it's
Yeah.
nice to have something that's open source that's really well maintained. Like it's constantly getting updates, and there seems to be a cool community around it too. So if you need something like that, Yaak is a great place to start.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. I like that. I saw you did a live stream with about V0 recently.
Yeah, I did. I was just playing around with it because I was like, I was really tired and I'm like, I don't feel like coding something right now, but I do kind
Yeah.
of want to play with V0 because it's been a bit. So I built a JavaScript quizzer basically to ask me questions about, well, I think it was about all web development. And so that was fun. And then I was trying to get it to use AI to ask those questions, but it was messing up on me. It wouldn't let me input my key. So unfortunately, it was just hard coded questions and answers at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a fun way to like, hey, yeah, ask me some stuff about web development that I may not think of normally.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. There's such a growing list of tools that I want to play around with and keep hearing about.
Yeah.
I played around with something called Brightdata. Have you heard of that one?
No.
It's on the same vein of web scraping that I've brought up in the first episode, but Brightdata is a web scraping tool. They've been around for a while, but I think they just made an MCP server, so I tried it out. I actually have an interesting take, which is I think some MCP servers are good. Like the Figma MCP server is good. Like you ask it to code something, it'll actually be able to look at the nodes in a Figma file and do stuff. I do think there are some MCP servers that are literally just a wrapper around API, like API endpoints, and there's nothing special about them. Like I use
Yeah.
this MCP server, I was like, can you scrape product reviews off of Amazon for me? And I asked that specifically because I saw that this MCP server had a Amazon product review endpoint. So I was like, you should be calling, like it should know to call this endpoint if I ask that, right? I'm asking you to scrape
Yeah.
from this web, and it didn't do it. And I literally had to, it literally got to the point where in my prompt, I was like, I want you to hit this endpoint to do this thing for me, which at that point, why am I asking them? I should just hit
Yeah.
the endpoint, right? So I was like, it was very interesting experience. I was like, wow, there really are some, I think some companies are just creating, to be honest, like MCP servers just to say they have one, but it really probably is just a very thin wrapper around like a
Yeah.
bunch of different API endpoints, which I'm like, okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that being beneficial in like automations, but even then, like those automations can also just hit the endpoint. So like, I don't
Exactly.
know, yeah, why that's useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something
Like,
like we're trying to wrestle with a little bit with resend because like, yeah, it's helpful to be able to send an email, but again, you could just hit an endpoint, as part of that
exactly.
too.
Yeah, the
So it's
server
like,
has to
how do
do
we make
something
this actually
more.
useful?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was good though. I learned a lot of conceptual things about web scraping as I was using the tool,
it's
which maybe
called
I'll bring
Bright
up in a
Data,
future podcast. Yeah,
right?
Brightdata.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go straight into our show and tell for this week. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So, maybe as part of my push against the AI overlords, I do like to do a lot of crafts and stuff like that. Like I've always been into that. My mom was super into it, so I always grew up doing tons of crafts. So I found this wood craft thing. I don't know. It's like halfway put together, but it's this bookstore that has like lighting and stuff. I don't have the battery hooked up right now, and I have like bookshelves I built and all this stuff. But it's this little like kit you put together. It's gonna take me like 12, 13 hours, I think. So I'm several hours in, but I don't know. It's been really fun. It's called like Anavrin, I think is the name of the company, but they have a bunch of these kinds of little
Anavrin?
DIY kits that you can put together. So it's been really fun and like a nice way to spend a Saturday, like a couple hours. And my kids like doing crafts too. So yeah, that's been my non-computer show and tell today.
It lights up too?
Yeah, it has a little light in the bookstore, and you can like put it on your bookshelf, and then it like lights up and stuff. I don't know. I think it'll be
That's
cool.
so cute. I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's been
gotta,
fun.
I mean, I don't really have a bookshelf the same way you do, but maybe I'll find a place to put it, like a little nook. That's super cute. Mine is, I don't know why, mine is always gonna be football related, Chris. I don't know what to tell you.
That's okay.
But I will text it to you right now,
Okay.
and I'll also play it on screen. Essentially, it's a script that takes like football footage and it takes all the humans and turns them into blobs. And I think the NFL official count or something did this, and they had people guess like who is this football player, right? Because then you can't tell
Oh,
who it is. And so I thought that was fun, and I was like, we should do that for, our community in Seattle. It's pretty fun. It's like, oh, like, who threw this pick or who caught this ball? And it's very fun to see. Some people are very obvious, like you can tell from their body movements who it is. Some people you can't really tell. So
that's super cool. I actually just saw something this morning, and it must be based off that. It was a English Premier League team, and they were like, "Do you remember who did this play?" And I remembered exactly who it was, but it's been like 7 or 8 years. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was Son from Tottenham Hotspur," but he like ran the whole field, but he was just like blacked out, like you couldn't see who it
yeah.
was. So that's super cool. I didn't know that was a thing that's going around. I guess I need
Yeah,
to
it's
pay
like a
more
little
attention.
pop quiz, which is kind of fun. I
I
like
like
that.
that.
Well, that wraps up our third episode of Convos.dev. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments. And if you have any questions or thoughts about what we talked about, put them in the comments. And we would really, really like to discuss them in our next episode. So it makes us happy to get like comments from you guys. Check out our socials, it's in the description. Otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure again. This is super fun for us to do. And I'll see you next week ish, Chris. See ya.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Bye.